Good morning, children. Welcome back to our science class. So, we will continue with the respiration in organisms. In our last class, we had seen the different parts of our respiratory system, how each organs they are involved in the process of respiration. So today, let us see how this breathing mechanism occurs in in the living beings or the human beings. As I said, that respiration is being made up of two things. One is the breathing, and the other one is the cellular respiration. We saw in detail about cellular respiration. Let us now see the first part, that is the breathing. So, as I already said earlier in my earlier class, that breathing is composed of inhalation and exhalation, right? Inhalation is the taking in air, and exhalation means giving out air rich in carbon dioxide. So here, the number of times a person breathe in a minute. When I say breathing involves what? Inhalation and exhalation. So the number of times a person breathe in a minute, you call it as the breathing rate. So the breathing mechanism is controlled by the diaphragm. You can see the diaphragm below the ribs, the muscular sheet that is present is known as the diaphragm. Now, diaphragm, though it is not part of the respiratory system, but it is an accessory organ which is being involved in the process of respiration. So, the diaphragm, which you will see below the ribs, and the intercostal muscles, that is the muscles around here, they both help in the mechanism of respiration. So when the diaphragm moves down, okay, when the diaphragm moves down, the lungs inside the ribs, they expand and the air is being inhaled. Okay, so when you inhale the air, when the air which is rich in oxygen is being taken in, you can see that the lungs, they expand. So when the lungs expand, the ribs, they move out and the diaphragm moves down, so that they can give the space for the lungs to expand. Okay, and when the exhalation process happens, the air is being forced out, which contains the carbon dioxide. So at that time, you will see the ribs, they move in, and the diaphragm, they move upwards. Okay, so when the diaphragm moves up, the lungs contract and the air is being inhaled out. So this is the mechanism which is the breathing mechanism, which is controlled by the diaphragm. So here, the process of taking in air rich in oxygen is called inhalation, and the process of giving out air rich in carbon dioxide is called exhalation. And one breath comprises one inhalation and one exhalation, and the number of times a person breathes in 1 minute is termed as his or her breathing rate.
Let us now understand the process of breathing. Breathing is the process of intake of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide. It consists of inhalation, which is the process of taking in of oxygen-rich air through the nostrils into the lungs, and exhalation, that is the process of giving out carbon dioxide containing air through the nostrils. One breath comprises of an inhalation and an exhalation. The process continues in all the organisms throughout their lifespan. Breathing rate can be defined as the number of times we breathe in a minute.
Let us take the breathing process in a simpler way. Try to observe this experimental setup to understand the process of inhalation and exhalation. In this setup, balloons act as lungs. Jar acts as the sealed thoracic cavity, and rubber sheet acts as the diaphragm.
Here we can see the breathing mechanism is being demonstrated with the help of a small activity, where you are taking a jar, and the jar, they act as the thoracic cavity there. Okay, and then you can see the rubber sheet below the jar. It acts as a diaphragm, and then the two balloons, okay, semi-filled balloons, they are being inserted into the jar with the help of the straw, and then the bottle of the jar is being closed with the help of a cork.
On pulling down the rubber sheet, pressure of air in the glass jar drops, which draws air from outside to get filled in balloons, analogous to what happens in inhalation.
So here you can see when the rubber sheet is being pulled down. Okay, so the air the balloon, it gets inflated. That is, it gets blown up because of the air which is being present, because the pressure which is being exerted downwards. Okay, so the balloon gets inflated. So this is analogous. Analogous means same to the inhalation process which happens in our body.
While pushing the same rubber tube up results in increased air pressure within the glass jar and drives the air in the balloons out, similar to what happens during the exhalation.
So when the rubber sheet is being pulled up, you can see the balloon gets deflated. So balloon, as I told, it acts as a lungs. So the lungs, they push out the air because of the pressure which is being exerted from downwards.
Now, after understanding the process of breathing from the above discussed experiment, try to distinguish between inhalation and exhalation shown in these diagrams. To learn some more details related to the process of breathing and to have a visual idea of what actually happens during this process, let us watch this animation.
When we exercise, we breathe rapidly and deeply. Automatically, our body inhale and exhale air more than the normal to fulfill increased energy requirement. More scientifically, breathing is a mechanical process during which an organism inhales oxygen-rich air and exhales carbon dioxide. The body's breathing apparatus is enclosed in the chest region. The breathing apparatus consists of ribs, diaphragm, vertebral column, and sternum. Breathing mechanism involves two processes: inhalation or inspiration and exhalation or expiration. Breathing occurs due to changes in the volumes of thoracic and abdominal cavities caused by rhythmic contractions of diaphragm, ribs, and intercostal muscles. Inhalation is the active process initiated by respiratory control center in the brain. As inhalation begins, the diaphragm and intercostal muscles contract. As a result, the diaphragm moves downward while ribs are raised upwards in the forward direction. Consequently, the volume of chest cavity increases, thus the pressure in the lungs decreases. This results in the expansion of lungs, and the air rushes into the air passages and lungs. Oxygen from the inhaled air diffuses into the blood, and the carbon dioxide present in the blood diffuses out into the lungs for exhalation. Exhalation is a passive process in which the lungs shrink back to their original shape. During exhalation, the diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax. As a result, the diaphragm moves upwards while ribs are pushed downwards and inward to restore their position. Consequently, the volume of chest cavity decreases and the pressure inside the lungs increases. This results in the shrinking of the lungs, and air is thrown out of the lungs through the air passages into the external environment. Exhaled air is rich in carbon dioxide, which is a waste product of cellular respiration. Inhalation and exhalation together constitute one breath and follow each other without break. Normally, it can be repeated 12 to 18 times per minute. In fact, the breath is life, and if you breathe well, you will stay healthy.
So here the normal breathing rate of a person is like 15 to 18 in a minute, but if a person is doing some heavy exercise or running, it may go up to 20 to 25 breath in a minute.
What is the main constituent of exhaled air? Let us find out.
So here, what all is being exhaled out is what we are going to study now.
As we know, all living beings require oxygen to survive. However, what do we give out in the exchange of this oxygen in the air? Carbon dioxide. Let us do an experiment to identify the presence of carbon dioxide in the exhaled air. For this experiment, we require a test tube, lime water, a 1-hole cork piece, and a bent glass tube. Take a test tube. Pour some lime water in the test tube. Now, let us fit a cork stopper at the mouth of the test tube. Ensure that the cork should have 1 hole in it. Good. Now, let us take a bent tube and insert it through the hole in the cork stopper. We have to make sure to dip its one end in the lime water. Now, let us exhale some air into the bent tube from the mouth. Now, observe the color of the lime water. When the air is blown through the mouth in the lime water, then the lime water turns milky. The appearance of more cloudiness in the lime water confirms the presence of carbon dioxide in exhaled air.
So here you saw in this experiment that when carbon dioxide is passed through lime water, it turns milky in nature. This experiment we had learned in chapter 6 when we were learning about the chemical reactions of the different substances. So this is the same thing. When carbon dioxide is passed through lime water, it turns milky in nature.